Welcome to another episode of Football Talk with John and Evan. I'm your host, John Justin Jankowski, with Evan knows his football bonner. Evan, the Philadelphia Eagles are 4-1, and they are at top of the NFC East.
Not just the NFC East, John. They're at top of the NFL, or excuse me, they're second in the NFL after the Kansas City Chiefs in terms of wins and losses. First in the NFC. John, it isn't just that they're 4-1, it's how they're doing it. I mean, this is a team that gets better every week. They stay balanced like we talked about last week. You know, they're dominating defensively without all their horses. And they're winning games they're supposed to win, how they're supposed to win them. And there's a lot to be said for that. This is an Eagles team. I don't know if they really are the second best team in the league, whereas some rankings have put them recently, but they're certainly a team that's for real. And I think at this point, John, if they don't make the playoffs, there will be heck to pay because this team certainly is good enough, at least as it stands after 5 weeks.
So 2 days ago, we're recording this on Tuesday, October 10th. Philadelphia Eagles welcomed in the Arizona Cardinals into Lincoln Financial Field for the second Eagles home game of the year. And the Eagles nearly played a perfect first quarter. I mean, D-line first drive looked great, and the first drive, something that made me really happy is one of Evan's favorite players we were talking about before the season, Jalen Mills. He really stepped up and set the tone, saying everyone was worried about the wide receivers were going to take over the Eagles' corners, and Jalen Mills quickly set the tone and showed, hey, corners ain't that bad either. So that was cool to see early on. And then Carson Wentz, first drive, couple huge third down conversions. I mean, Carson Wentz has been huge on third down this season. I mean, the rookie still makes some bonehead plays, like the interception he threw right before half against the Cardinals. He'll miss players at times. He missed Ertz on a play on second half. But it's only his second year. The kid's still learning, but he's showing a lot of things you like to see. And after the Eagles went down and scored to Evan's favorite tight end, or not, he doesn't think he's the best tight end, but it's Evan's favorite tight end, Trey Burton. That was great to see Trey Burton get in the end zone. The next drive,
Special teams ace Trey Burton, John. Special teams ace.
You love him. And then
love Trey Burton.
Second possession, Eagles D-line steps up again, which was without Fletcher Cox, which was great to see. Eagles' best defensive lineman, Eagles D-line was doing great without him. And then something that I haven't really talked about and I've been ignoring, or we just haven't really talked about much on the podcast besides Jake Elliott. This special teams is fun to watch when it just comes to returning kicks, to kickoff coverage, to punt coverage. I mean, they just fly down the field. And on the second possession for the Eagles, I mean, Kenyon Barner took it 75 yards down to the 10. And this special teams, Evan, it might be one of the best in the NFL.
Oh, John, it might exactly. I mean, but they're also there kind of, you know, year in and year out, as long as Dave Phipps has been there. I mean, they're very balanced. Darren Sproles goes down, and everyone was talking about how we've lost this element in the return game. And not only is that not the case, but they were able to sign someone off the street and really, you know, really from the first punt return, you kind of can plug Kenyon Barner in, and he almost looks like a Pro Bowler. Now, I'm not saying that's all Dave Phipps or this, that, or whatever. Kenyon Barner clearly has kept himself in shape, game ready, and has taken advantage of his opportunities. But this is a team, like you said, John, you know, they almost blocked the punt last week. They do a great job in the return game. You know, they're kicking field goals. Donnie Jones is still one of the best punters in football. Another thing, John, is, you know, John Dorenbos in the offseason obviously is traded to the New Orleans Saints. Turns out he has a heart condition, retires. Rick Lovato steps up for the Eagles and has not missed a beat. Now, if you watch the game last night, the Monday Night Football game between the Arizona Cardinals and the
Vikings Bears.
The Vikings Bears, and they actually the Bears, were able to get back in the game off a special teams play, a fake punt, went for a touchdown. And you just see that those types of momentum plays are very big. But going back to the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday, they lost their long snapper very quick early in the game, and it very obviously affected the way they were able to punt and the timing on the field goals and the extra points. So Rick Lovato's done a great job as a long snapper, filling in for the most tenured Eagle up to that point on the roster, John Dorenbos. But more importantly, John, this is a special teams group that's opportunistic, but more important and talented, but more importantly, they're consistent. I mean, game in and game out, I said as long as Dave Phipps has been here, they've at the very least been competent on one end, and the other end, they can flat out win games for the Eagles. I think Kenyon Barner was the MVP of the game this past week. You know, almost at least the first 2 drives that the Eagles had was very short yardage situations because Kenyon Barner was able to put them in positions to score quickly, and even the rest of the game, the Arizona Cardinals started kicking away from Kenyon Barner, giving the Eagles short field position, and it's just easier to score touchdowns when you don't have to go as far. I mean, you don't really need to be a football fan to know that. And just top to bottom, the special teams unit is special. They have guys who are committed to it, who come in and do their job very well, who aren't Darren Sproles. Matt Collins, obviously, Trey Burton, one of my favorite, almost blocked the punt last week. But this is a group, John, right now that they are balanced, like we talked about last week, not only offensively, not only defensively, but on special teams. Across the board, this team can beat you and be effective at every phase of the game. And, we're not really just expecting, the run game to carry us or a pass game to carry us or an elite defense to carry us with not so great or offense or a special teams group to come up with a couple plays here or there to win a game or two. They can attack and they can win at every facet of a football game. And that has a lot to do with Doug Peterson and the entire coaching staff and obviously the players. So it's very exciting to see what will happen on Thursday.
And then we'll continue to talk about the rest of the first half against the Cardinals. Zach Ertz got a touchdown that short drive. Zach Ertz didn't have the best game, but, he did his job. He got a touchdown. He had 4 or 5, 3 catches. Carson Wentz spread the ball a lot on Sunday, so great to see Ertz continuing to do a good job, especially in the red zone. That's exactly what the Eagles have been lacking the past couple of years. They really didn't have that red zone threat. Zach Ertz really didn't break out until this season.
Why is Zach Ertz broke out, John? Why do you think that is? There's one reason.
Well,
Alshon Jeffrey, John. Yeah, there's more space in the middle of the field to move around. I don't think Zach Ertz is broken out necessarily, but teams now have to respect the perimeter of the Philadelphia Eagles offense. Torrey Smith can take it deep. Alshon Jeffrey can do pretty much everything and has pretty much commanded the respect of every top corner the Eagles have faced. If it's not Josh Norman, it's Patrick Robinson. Top to bottom, this is a very good wide receiver group, even if it isn't always showing up in the stat line, and that allows someone like Zach Ertz just to create mayhem running over the middle. So I don't think Zach Ertz is necessarily broken out as much as they've created realistic opportunities for him to be successful by going out and getting top-end talent at other positions. I think one hand washes the other. I don't think Zach Ertz would be having half the success he is having if Dorial Green-Beckham was still a starting wide receiver on this team, for example.
Well, one thing that you mentioned about perimeter offense, Torrey Smith, he scored the 3rd touchdown of the game, a 62-yard touchdown. It's nice to see him have a big play because the first part of the season was really frustrating for Torrey Smith. Lots of drop passes, a lot of big play opportunities, but really couldn't convert. But it was nice to finally see him have that big play to really blow the game wide open to 21-0 in the first half.
Oh, well, I don't mind Torrey Smith's game. I think he brings you a vertical presence, like you said, John. He certainly will force off coverage, can force bracket coverage from time to time. At least the opposing teams, for the most part, need to shade safeties to his side, even when he isn't really catching balls, because, again, at any point in time he could make a big play. Alshon Jeffrey actually can do that as well. Obviously, Nelson Aguilar had another one, but that vertical presence that this Eagles team has this year, it's really – the last time we saw that, John, was what, 2013? Yeah. When Deshaun Jackson was last here, and maybe 2014. Excuse me, John. The year is either 13 or 14. Whenever Deshaun Jackson's last year here was, but when teams, what that does, what Torrey Smith really brings you, John, is even if he doesn't make plays on game day, where he's most effective on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday. And what I mean by that is teams have to constantly scheme for that speed. They have to respect it at all times, because if they don't, if you're in zero coverage or or cover one man-to-man. Zero coverage means there's no safety help over the top. Everyone has somebody in the secondary, and teams will be blitzing. Or cover one man, where there's only one safety up top and everyone else is kind of locked up man-to-man, usually in those blitzing situations. Teams can't really do that because of the speed and the ability to stretch the field. And when that happens, now all of a sudden teams really can't load 8 guys in the box. They can't come up and press so much. And that creates opportunities for LeGarrette Blount, for Wendell Smallwood, when Darren Sproles was healthy, even last week, Kenyon Barner. It's just easier to run everything in the middle. It opens things up for Zach Ertz, Trey Burton, just, keeping teams away from being able to stack the box. And that's what Torrey Smith brings you. And it's that scheme element on Tuesday, on Wednesday, even when that doesn't show up. On game day, even when he drops a pass here or there, teams are going to always respect that because he still has the vertical speed. And we finally started to see, at least last week, him put that together. So if that continues, the Eagles' offense should be even more prolific than it's already been in the first 5 weeks of the NFL season.
After that third touchdown by the Eagles against the Cardinals, Carson Palmer, the O-line, finally protected him on the 4th drive of the game for the Cardinals. And when Palmer got time, he picked the Eagles apart for one drive and was able to go down and score for a touchdown. The next couple offensive possessions for the Eagles, they tried running the ball, weren't really having much success, but to give the Eagles credit and give Doug Peterson credit, he did not give up on the run game throughout the game. We were talking special teams earlier. The Eagles end the half by blocking a Phil Dawson kick. It would have been like 40 to 50 yarders. One thing that was frustrating before is Eagles were in the red zone and Carson Wentz threw a stupid pass in the double coverage and pick for the Arizona Cardinals. But like I said, Carson Wentz, there's still mistakes he makes. I mean, he's been playing great for the Eagles this year. I mean, it's still his second year. He has a lot to improve on still, and that's good. We didn't expect him to be perfect year 2, but there are still things that Wentz still needs to work on, some decisions, some misses he makes. But, 21-7 going to half, you had to be pretty happy with it.
Oh, absolutely, John. Again, that was a lot of the first quarter and those short yardage situations. Started by Kenyon Barner and that return team. But the Eagles top to bottom came out and they punched Arizona in the mouth, and they kept their foot on the gas. And we've seen the Eagles get out to big leads and kind of give that up. We saw that obviously in the New York Giants game. They got out to a lead. New York was able to come back a little. But this is a team that's growing. They're continuing to get better. They're still very young, particularly defensively. Jim Schwartz is still only in his second year here. But in my opinion, John, this is a group that gets out early, and at least based on last week, again, they were able to finish the game as strongly as they started on the defensive end, and that says a lot about the Eagles and that coaching staff and Jim Schwartz in particular. And I'm very excited to see what this team will do on Thursday against a very strong Carolina Panthers team that's also 4-1. But going back to this past week, John. They were opportunistic. They capitalized. They were able to block a field goal. I think that was Patrick Robinson, who a couple months ago, John, I was pooing on him on this show, and all of a sudden now he's borderline playing like a Pro Bowler. He's not a Pro Bowler, but man, last week he was good against a number of very good Arizona Cardinals in one-on-one situations. Really dominated both the Brown player, John Brown and Jaquan Brown. I think Jaron Brown. Jaron Brown in particular, big, strong, fast. He really was not able to get any separation, number 13, from Patrick Robinson. And again, John, this is all happening without Ronald Darby, without Sidney Jones. And it can only go up from here, at least theoretically. So in my mind, the way the Eagles started was opportunistic, and it really has set a tone for the rest of the game, and they were able to live up to that tone throughout the entirety of that football game. And I just think that says a lot about a good football team right now. I think it really does.
Eagles D-line continued to look great in the second half. Brandon Graham, Vinny Curry especially. Good for Vinny Curry because this is a player we've dogged the whole show. The guy Eagles paid boatloads of money to last offseason. Everyone's saying he underperformed, and it's nice to see him have a good game. Brandon Graham, ever since last year, he's been stepping up. The Eagles didn't give up on the run, like I said earlier. It was nice to see all the mix of running backs get some touches in that second half. And the play, one of the best offensive plays I've seen, like one of the best yak catches, yards after catches. Nelson Aguilar, right on the tip of his fingers, catches a huge pass from Carson Wentz on a 3rd and 20, and then he stiff arms the defender 2 or 3 times and does the fancy end zone celebration, falls backward into the end zone, and just seeing the joy on Nelson Aguilar, because he also had a huge 3rd down conversion earlier in the game. And it's nice to see him finally playing well. I mean, he's not playing at first-round talent yet, but it's just nice to see him contributing and having fun out there and not being frustrated like he was last year.
What do you mean by first-round talent, John? I mean, I think he's stretched the field. He's made plays in the short yards, the long yardage. I mean, John, if you're expected –
Well, from a first-round pick, from a first-round wide receiver, you want 10 touchdowns and 1,000 yards.
How often does anyone get that?
I mean, look at your first round. I mean, you want your first-round wide receiver to be your top receiver.
I want $1 million, John. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. The fact of the matter is, Alshon Jeffrey has a role on this team. He shows athleticism. He shows ability to beat one-on-one coverage and ability to elude tacklers. He comes up big in 3rd down situations, like you just said, and an ability to stretch the field. Now, I think, John, sometimes we look a little too much at numbers here. There is Alshon Jeffrey on this team. Zach Ertz is on this team. Torrey Smith is on this team. LeGarrette Blount is on this team. I mean, there's a lot of talent. There's only one football. In my mind, Alshon Jeffrey almost every week comes up with a big play here or there to, if not, separate the Eagles from the opposing defense, then to really keep that distance. And I like what Nelson Aguilar has brought to the table this year, John. I think, and I have been proven right on our arguments so far. I don't know if statistically he is where our bet is, but I said he'd play well earlier in our podcast. And John, I think you said
you had 70 catches.
What's he on pace for right now, John?
Aguilar? I'll bring it up, but I mean, we both agree. It's just nice to see him have so much more confidence compared to last year.
I think it's nice to have another receiver. I mean, the Eagles right now have 3 dangerous wide receivers. Even Torrey Smith, who drops some balls, has the vertical presence.
He's on pace for 48 this year, by the way.
48 catches?
Yeah.
Ooh, man, that makes me look bad so far. But he is absolutely making an impact, and it's still early, John. I think you'll be paying for Chili's when you're back around.
But
Jack Rip.
That was such a great, that stiff arm was so fun to watch. I was cheering so loud when he just got past the defender, because that defender had him dead to rights to tackle him, and Aguilar said, "Get off me," and Aguilar found the end zone. That was terrific. That was so much fun to watch. And basically, this was just the Eagles' dominant win. But we're going to move on to Thursday Night Football.
Who's your MVP of the Cardinals, real quick, of that game?
Of the Cardinals?
Of the Cardinals game.
Yeah. Oh. I mean, I wish I could just give it to the whole D-line.
All right, John, for me, it's co-MVPs. Kenyon Barner and Patrick Robinson are my co-MVPs of that game. I just want to throw that out there.
I mean, that was the beauty of this game. I mean, think about it. You said Kenyon Barner, Patrick Robinson. I said the D-line. We didn't even bring up Carson Wentz, who threw a career-high 4 touchdowns.
You could argue a number of different people were.
That's why that win was so great. But let's talk some Thursday Night Football. Just my own opinion, I hate Thursday Night Football. Short rest. It's sloppy. Both teams never bring out their A games because they have such a short time to prepare. Not a fan of Thursday Night Football at all. The only plus side is you kind of get a bye week the week after. But it's a shame because you have 2 4-1 teams playing each other between the Panthers and the Eagles on Thursday. And they're both playing on short rest. And at least it's an equal playing field, but the Eagles still have to travel while the Panthers don't have to travel. So Evan, he texted me earlier his 7 things to watch, and we're going to go through each of those 7 points. The Eagles' defensive line versus the Panthers' defensive line, and this has been 2 of the best defensive lines in football this year. I mean, that's been the best part of the Eagles this year, in my opinion, to watch, is the Eagles' defensive line. They've been getting pressure on the quarterbacks, forcing them to throw early, which really helps this secondary. I know we've complimented Jalen Mills and Patrick Robinson for their past performance, but I mean, this was a secondary we were very worried about coming into the season, and the defensive line has really helped them out. It looks like Fletcher Cox will be playing. I don't know how many snaps he's going to get in the game, but it looks like the Eagles' best defensive lineman will be playing against the Panthers. That's a huge addition. The Panthers D-line, they're going to have a little bit of fun because Lane Johnson, he's not going to play. It looks like he had a concussion from the Cardinals game. He probably won't play. That's a big loss for the Eagles. I mean, we saw how much the Lane Johnson injury impacted him last season. But it's going to be interesting because the Panthers D-line, they want to get to Carson Wentz, especially on third down, because Carson's been a third down machine. So that's one thing I'm really interested to see how well the Eagles protect him, especially with the Lane Johnson injury.
Well, John, first of all, Lane Johnson, obviously, that's a huge loss if he is out. I'm assuming he will not pass protocol by Thursday. I mean, obviously, last year, Lane Johnson misses 10 games, and that's really where the Eagles start to struggle. Now, Vaitai, I think, will step up and do a very nice job at right tackle. I think he is a great plug-and-play tackle on the right or the left side, gives you great depth. So I expect the Eagles not to be as good as they were last week or the last couple of weeks, but in pass protection. But I certainly expect Vaitai and that group to still be very competent. Now, who has the better defensive line? It's tough to say. Charles Johnson is still a nice player out there in Carolina. Star Lotulelei was one of my favorite players coming out of Utah. I thought he was going to be more of a nose guard. He's someone I wanted the Eagles to get back in the day to play nose guard back when Chip Kelly was here. He seems to be very good in that 4-3 defensive tackle role. I don't know how to pronounce his name, John. Is it Kawan Short? Actually, he's a Purdue Boilermaker, I believe. And he is obviously we're big Purdue Boilermaker fans in this house. My dad and my brother both went to Purdue, but he's another game changing defensive tackle. They get that push from Star Lotulelei and Quan Short right up the middle, pushing that pocket up, very similar to Timmy Jernigan and Fletcher Cox. But both those players are healthy right now, so we'll see what how that goes. Now the other defensive end, John, I actually had to look it up right now, is Mario Addison. Don't know much about him, but he's got to be competent. But they still have, John, one of my favorite players of all time, Julius Peppers. He actually started off in Carolina, went to Chicago, then to Green Bay. Now he's back in the twilight of his career with the team that drafted him, the Carolina Panthers. But growing up, Julius Peppers was as good as it got as a 4-3 defensive end. And I'm sure he's still playing down there, getting a few quality snaps from time to time. And they do have depth out there, and I still say I think the Eagles' defensive line is a little bit better. Brandon Graham, in my opinion, is one of the best defensive ends in all of football. I don't care what the statistics say. He's coming off a second-team All-Pro look. Great against the run. Great left defensive end against a quarterback's strong side. Getting that push in the pocket, forcing quarterbacks up into the pocket where guys like Fletcher Cox and Timmy Jernigan can finish him off. I love what Brandon Graham has done this year and last year. Obviously, Timmy Jernigan might be my new favorite Eagle. He is a monster in there. I'm not calling him the best one, but he might be my favorite. He has made me totally forget about Benny Logan, which is hard to do, considering Benny was my favorite Eagle for a long time. Now, Vinny Curry on the end for the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm not a huge fan of. I know he's played okay up and down. I want to see more out of Derek Barnett. I like to see him play more. When I do watch him play, I see it in Derek Barnett. I think if he got more opportunities, he would grow with this Eagles defensive line. But Vinny Curry's not bad. Obviously, another one, John, Chris Long has been La Flama Blanca 95 on Instagram. He's one of my favorite players right now. I wasn't a big fan of him in one of our earlier shows, but he has given a presence every time he has stepped onto the field, energy, against the run and the pass. He really gives a depth and a change of pace to Brandon Graham. They'll even stand him and Derek Barnett up and make them look almost like they're in a 4 or a 2-4 sub package look from time to time. But he's very good as well. And obviously Derek Barnett is somebody I would like to see more of on the field. So I would still say the Eagles' defensive line is stronger than the Carolina Panthers' defensive line, but it is close, Sean. Both these teams can really play. Now, the Eagles' defensive line, in my opinion, has an advantage based off the scheme they use. I think that wide nine really helps any pass rusher really get up the field, get after the opposing team's quarterbacks using leverage. And that a little bit more that the Carolina Panthers won't get as much because they are a little bit more of a traditional 4-3 front. But, John, when it's all said and done, I think there is more talent on the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line, and one check goes to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Carson Wentz versus Cam Newton is our next topic we're going to talk about. Now, Carson Wentz, I've been saying this the whole podcast, he's playing really well. I mean, there's obviously mistakes he makes, but he's got weapons this year with Ertz, Jeffrey, Torrey Smith, Nelson Aguilar stepping up, Garrett Blunt, weapons he didn't have last year. It's also his second year of learning. He makes the occasional bad throw. He has the occasional miss.
Name me someone who doesn't.
You talk about true. And then you have Cam Newton, which MVP a couple years ago, but he's not the elite passer. But Cam Newton is a playmaker. This is a man, when coverage breaks down, he can run up a draw. He can throw on the run. And he'll make the linebackers think, what is he going to do? You got to keep a linebacker on Cam Newton. Cam Newton can also avoid the sack very well. I mean, he's bigger than most of the defensive players out there. He's very big, and he's fast, and he's strong. So Cam Newton can really cause just so many headaches for you because he can just do a quick dump off, or he can just do a run of his own, and he can also throw off balance and hit a receiver. Now, he's not the most accurate at times. He's not an elite passer, but he's a playmaker. And one miscommunication, and he can hit you for a big play. And it's gonna be interesting to see how the Eagles deal with Cam Newton, because you're gonna see so much misdirection from the Panthers. You're gonna see reverses. You're gonna see the option. You're gonna see QB draws. You're gonna see wide receiver reverse. You're gonna see end arounds. You're gonna see running backs catching the ball out of the backfield a majority of the time. You're gonna see a lot of non-traditional offensive football from Cam Newton.
Well, John, I think this where the last topic we talked about, I think that favored the Eagles. I do think quarterback play favors the Carolina Panthers. However, I think Cam Newton, with his shoulder still being an issue and on a short week, I think you won't see as many quarterback draws and Cam really trying to extend plays as much as I think he would like and the Carolina Panthers would like. Pulling up some stats, John. The last 2 weeks of the Carolina Panthers season, Cam Newton has had last week 141.8 passer rating, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. The week before against the New England Patriots, 130.8 quarterback rating, 3 touchdown against 1 interception. So the last 2 weeks, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. Both times over 130 quarterback rating. When he's hot, he's hot. And that's compared to their one loss of the year when he has threw 0 touchdowns, 3 picks, and had a 43.7 quarterback rating. Now, what does that mean? Carson Wentz, in my mind, he has had more games over that 90 or above threshold that I think quarterbacks are often really compared against. In today's NFL, I think when Donovan was around, it was a little bit more 80, 85. Now it has moved to 90 into 100 is what quarterbacks are expected in their quarterback rating. But Cam Newton the last couple of weeks is hot. And like you said, he's older. He has more experience. He's got an MVP in his belt. But that's neither here nor there. That was 2 seasons ago. What I'm more worried about, John, is he has been hot the last couple of weeks. I think he has beaten 2 very good teams. The New England Patriots are obviously the New England Patriots, and the Detroit Lions and Matthew Stafford. You can never sleep on them either. And not only has the Panthers won, or Cam Newton has won untraditionally. I mean, 6 touchdowns to 1 pick in the last 2 weeks is very good. And Cam Newton was able to do that with Jonathan Stewart struggling, only having about 25 yards rushing last week, and they were able to kind of put it on his shoulders, and he was able to get it done. So in my mind, comparing that to Carson Wentz, who has been very consistent on 3rd down, has made plays when they've been given to him. But Carson has the benefit of a very strong run game right now, of an elite offensive line right now. Well, we'll see what happens with Lane Johnson being out. And in my opinion, a very strong wide receiver group that is better than the Carolina Panthers. But the Carolina Panthers have as many wins, and I think that has a lot to do with Carson or Cameron Newton. In my mind, John, you saying that he's not a traditional quarterback is not entirely true. I do think at the end of the day, he's able to get the football to playmakers in space. And what else are we really talking about when it comes to quarterback play? He's able to do those things. He's able to win football games. And in my mind, there's not like they're running the wishbone or a wing T offense. This is an NFL offense. They are throwing the ball. They are getting it down the field. And you know, it isn't a gimmicky Chip Kelly offense or a Jim Harbaugh offense with Colin Kaepernick back in the day where he's running for 200 yards in a playoff game. Cam Newton is throwing the football. And I see that as, you know, pretty much being, you know, a regular NFL quarterback. And right now he's hot and he's confident. And in my mind, that check mark to the Carolina Panthers right now, John. That to me, I would rather right now for one game give me Cam Newton over Carson Wentz. Not for their career, but for one game.
One thing I want Eagle fans to look out for, Panthers have been leaving the middle of the field wide open. Panthers have tight ends have been playing very well against them. So look for Ertz to have a big game. Look for a lot of passes over the middle. The middle of the field has been open against the Panthers secondary. So something for Eagle fans to keep an eye on.
I think both Carolina Panthers corners did not practice today. And Kirk Coleman, former Philadelphia Eagles safety, has been ruled out for Thursday's contest. So that should help the Eagles passing game top to bottom.
Next topic Evan sent me today, the Eagles corners versus Kelvin Benjamin, the Panthers' best receiver, and Devin Funchess. So, like I said, where Cam Newton has been making a lot of big plays this season is when the D-line's getting pressure, but he's so good at avoiding sacks, he'll be able to avoid all the defensive linemen and make a throw on the run. And it's just so tough to be able to stay with wide receivers like Kelvin Benjamin, like a Devin Funchess. And they also have speedsters like Curtis Samuel, who's not a traditional wide receiver or a running back, Christian McCaffrey, who's a running back, but he catches the ball majority of the time instead of running the ball. So if you don't get the Cam Newton, he has weapons that will get open if you give them enough time. And they're fast, and they can catch the ball, and Newton has options if you don't bring him down.
Well, John, based on originally what I was talking about, Devin Funchess and Kelvin Benjamin, these are big, strong wide receivers, are vertical guys who are almost more like power forwards in the NBA. They get open using, body position, and they go up and pretty much just rebound the football like you would in a basketball game. And one thing the Philadelphia Eagles do have is they have some length at corner, particularly Rasul Douglas. Now, Jalen Mills isn't as long, but he's scrappy and physical, and I think he can match up pretty well. Patrick Robinson's another one who's a pretty big corner in his own right. Malcolm Jenkins can bump down into the slot. They'll bring in Corey Graham into their big nickel package. And he's another big guy. John, is Philly Brown, Corey Brown, Cardinal O'Hara's own Philly Brown, is he still on the Carolina Panthers?
I think they cut him.
Oh, they did? He's not around anymore?
Yeah.
Well, the Carolina Panthers are good at cornerback, but based off of the size and length of the Philadelphia Eagles and the toughness of their cornerbacks, I think this matchup kind of is a little bit of a wash, but does ultimately favor Carolina just from a talent perspective and experience. But I anticipate Rasul Douglas playing pretty well against Kelvin Benjamin and Devin Funchess. I mean, that's just kind of his game. He's a long, rangy corner. And that matches up well against big, physical, basketball-playing wide receivers. And, again, Jalen Mills is very scrappy. I think his physicality will make up for his lack of size in a matchup like this. In my opinion, this is another borderline wash. Could go either way, but I do lean towards the Carolina Panthers. Again, just because of their experience and athleticism, I do think the Panthers will make more plays than the Eagles will in terms of the Carolina receivers versus the Eagles corners. But I think the difference will ultimately be negligible, whereas it might be one or two plays in favor of the Panthers, but the Eagles will ultimately be able to contain the Panthers enough to give the Eagles a chance to be successful. I think the pass rush will also play a huge factor in Thursday's game, like it does every week. But every week that Ronald Darby isn't around, every week that Sidney Jones isn't around, it really puts that much extra pressure on a Philadelphia Eagles front four that is missing Fletcher Cox. At least it has the last couple of weeks. And if they're able to get after the quarterback a little, just get Cam Newton moving around, throwing off his back foot, making him uncomfortable, I think Rasul Douglas, Jalen Mills, and Patrick Robinson will be fine. I think the Panthers will make a few plays, but ultimately advantage Carolina Panthers just from an ability standpoint and experience. So I believe, John, that his quarterback play goes to the Panthers. Wide receivers versus corners go to the Panthers. And that's versus our first topic of what was it? I'm drawing a blank, John. Our first topic was what again?
Eagles D-line versus Panthers D-line.
That goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, excuse me. So it's 2-1 right now, Panthers to Eagles.
McCaffrey versus the Eagles front seven. Now, McCaffrey, this is an interesting topic because this is a rookie running back that a lot of Eagle fans are hoping would fall to the Eagles at 14 in the NFL draft this year. Evan was really never a big fan of his at 14 with the amount of issues the Eagles had in the offseason. It didn't matter anyway. McCaffrey got picked by the Carolina Panthers. It broke a lot of Eagle fans' hearts. A lot of Eagle fans wanted McCaffrey to end up on the Eagles. So far, Panther fans haven't been happy with how he's been running the ball, but he's been making a lot of plays catching the ball. He's had a lot of big plays catching the ball out of the backfield. They do a lot of shuffle passes with him. I mean, he's a quick guy. He's got great hands, but the one thing where you're going to have to watch McCaffrey hurt you is all of a sudden Cam Newton starts scrambling. You can't forget about McCaffrey either. So that's where McCaffrey could hurt you, but I like this Eagles front seven too much. I give the Eagles front seven the advantage on this one.
I do as well, John. Christian McCaffrey is very athletic. He's very versatile. Now, John, I remember when I was kind of pooing on Christian McCaffrey in our previous shows, I was talking to you about not so much that he wasn't a good football player, but I don't think he's worthy of a first-round bill. What I mean by that is when you're taking a running back top 10, you're really expecting him to be a transcendent talent, at least in today's NFL, where teams don't really take running backs that high anymore. And he's a little bit of a niche player. You know, is he a slot receiver? Is he a running back? Is he a third down guy? Is he a return guy? He certainly isn't all of that like he was at Stanford. He just doesn't have the size for it. Now, what he does have, again, the athleticism. The Panthers can kind of set up a play one way, getting the other team's front seven to go kind of start to move in one, let's say in the left to their left. And then the Panthers will kind of move Christian McCaffrey to the right side and get everyone off balance, and his quickness and speed kind of comes in. It's actually similar to how the New Orleans Saints used Reggie Bush when he was a rookie. But ultimately, what this comes down to is athleticism in space, because they will ultimately try to get Christian McCaffrey the ball in space in one-on-one situations where he can use his elite footwork, his elite quickness to shake tacklers. Now, if there's one thing the Eagles have in spades, it's athleticism in that front seven. All these guys can make plays in open space. If it's Derek Barnett, if it's Brandon Graham, even Timmy Jernigan, Fletcher Cox, you've even seen Bo Allen make a play from time to time. But what really ultimately makes this an Eagles advantage is the linebacking core. Michael Kendricks is playing the best I've ever seen him play. In any system, 3-4, 4-3, whatever, wide 9, normal. He has really stepped up and been an incredibly productive linebacker in the snaps he's given. Nigel Bradham is one of my favorite defensive Eagles. Another guy who can play in space, who's explosive, who can make one-on-one tackles. And last but certainly not least, probably the most talented player in the Eagles front seven, not named Fletcher Cox, is Jordan Hicks, another extremely athletic, good footwork, great instincts. A football ultimately has a nose around the football at all times. In my opinion, the Eagles have just as much athleticism in that front seven, particularly that linebacking core, as Christian McCaffrey has. And no matter how Ron Rivera and that Carolina Panthers offense tries to scheme Christian McCaffrey open, ultimately it will come down to Christian McCaffrey in space, eluding one-on-one tackles. And I think the Eagles, in their athleticism and ability to tackle in open space, win out. So advantage Philadelphia Eagles. That's 2-2.
The next topic we're going to go to is Jonathan Stewart versus LeGarrette Blount. Now, watching the Panthers the past couple weeks, this is a defense, like I said, the middle of the field was open for wide receivers. But this is a team that was giving up big runs at the end of the second half to the New Orleans Saints, to the New England Patriots, to the Detroit Lions. If the Eagles continue what they have been doing, is not giving up on the run after poor first half starts and really keep it going in the second half, I can see LeGarrette Blount having a great day. This is Thursday Night Football, so it's a lot more. You're going to have to do a lot more of a basic game plan because you don't have as much time to prepare as you would for a Sunday game. So this is a chance to be another LeGarrette Blount game. I really see the advantage for LeGarrette Blount compared to Jonathan Stewart just because I like the front seven of the Eagles defense more than the Panthers front seven. So what do you got on this matchup, Evan?
Well, John, like you said, LeGarrette Blount's playing very well right now. Jonathan Stewart is coming off of a game where he rushed for about 20, 25 yards. But these are two beefcake running backs, John. And I love beefy running backs. Physical, north-south running backs. The offensive line, you don't have to worry about any zone blocking there. It is hat on a hat. Physical running or blocking schemes around both of these guys. The Eagles have been able to do it very successfully the last couple of weeks, particularly against an Arizona Cardinals team that hasn't really been giving up 100-plus yard rushers. The Eagles weren't able to do that individually, but as a group they were. LeGarrette Blount has played very well recently. I'm very excited about their commitment to using LeGarrette Blount the right way. And again, that was something I was concerned about in the preseason. I was concerned about it around week 1, week 2. But Doug Peterson has shown the capacity to change and really gear his game plans to the strength of the team. And LeGarrette Blount has really produced well. The running games actually for the Eagles and the Panthers are very similar. Christian McCaffrey's a change of pace back. They bring him in, use him to get open in space. They run different plays for him than they do for Jonathan Stewart. It's not simply one guy spells the other. You see that for the Philadelphia Eagles too. LeGarrette Blount is very much the hammer, very much physical runner, north-south, in between those A and B gaps more or less. And then he also has the footwork and the athleticism once he gets to that next level to make some plays. In my mind, John, I think this is the most obvious advantage to the Philadelphia Eagles that we have seen. In my opinion, LeGarrette Blount is really showing his worth. Who knows how long he'll be able to keep it up. He is on the wrong side of 30, I do believe. But at least right now, as it stands going into week 6, LeGarrette Blount's about as good as it gets for the Philadelphia Eagles right now in terms of running the football. And Jonathan Stewart is coming off of his worst game going against the Philadelphia Eagles team that has done a very nice job against the run. So advantage Philadelphia Eagles, and I think that's going away.
All right. One thing for you fans at home, the Vegas mathematicians, they're giving the Panthers a 3-point. The Panthers are favored by 3 in this game, but remember, the home team automatically gets 3 points. So if this game was on a neutral field, they would say it's a pickup game. So very evenly matched game, like Evan and I have discussed. They're predicting a total of 45 points, so they're expecting each team to put up 3 touchdowns. So Vegas, this is coming from Vegas, have given the Panthers favoring the Panthers by 3 points, and they're expecting 3 touchdowns from both teams. The 6-point Evan and I want to talk about is this is a potential playoff matchup. Both teams are 4-1, but remember the NFC is playing very well this year. 9 of the 15 teams in the NFC have 3 wins or more. So you have a lot of teams playing well, but then you have a lot of 0-5s too throughout the NFL. I mean, we're talking 9 teams in the NFC have 3 or more wins in the NFC. And that's not even including the Dallas Cowboys, who are the favorites by a lot of experts coming into this year to win the NFC. So the NFC is really good this year. And it's kind of interesting because before the season, this was supposed to be an easier Eagles game because as the NFL schedule lays out, how they favor teams that have a bad record is if you're a last-place team in your division, you get to play all the other last-place teams in the divisions. But it turns out the Panthers and Eagles both had off years, and now they're both 4-1. These are 2 last-place teams last year, off to a 4-1 start. But every year I feel like we say in the NFL, last-place team, now a playoff team. We say that every year. I mean, the NFL schedule does help with that, but it's so hard to stay consistently good. And sometimes it's just one or two pieces to just get a team going. So I could definitely see both these teams playing in January. But Cowboys, I mean, they're still the Cowboys. They still have this is a team that played very well last year. So you don't want to count your chickens before they hatch. But the Atlanta Falcons are in the Panthers division as well. You don't think the Atlanta Falcons are going to go away quietly, especially after losing to Buffalo at their home place. So could these teams be in January? They should be, but it wouldn't surprise me if neither team was playing in January.
Oh, I totally agree, John. I mean, the worst of first is every year. That's why, we were talking about, the schedule coming out and how tough is this schedule, this or that, John. I mean, you in particular, you get all upset about the schedule. Man, look how this team last year was this and that and how many playoff teams. But every year there are worst of first and first or worst and everywhere in between. So I think this is just another example of every year being its own year. And you really can't look at, the year last year and what happened 2 weeks ago or what will happen in 3 weeks or whatever. Right now, these are two 4-1 football teams that are playing very good football that are very similar in the styles of football that they play and colliding at the right time. This might actually be the best Thursday night football game that either of us have seen in a while. Ultimately, I do think the Panthers win this game. I wish I didn't think that, but I just think anytime there's a short week, it's kind of advantage home team. And the Panthers right now are the home team. And I just have a hard time seeing the Eagles starting off 5-1. I think they'll win. I thought they were going to win 11 games. And I think John scoffed at me. Everyone was like, oh, but the Eagles, they're not they don't have –
I had 9-7.
I mean, but yeah, 9-7, 11-5, John, are huge difference.
No, you're very right.
I just looked at it like the talent on this roster is about 11, 12 wins. And for me, the question was Doug Peterson and his coaching staff, and they've been fantastic. Now, to start 5-1, we're not even talking about 11 wins. That's like almost if you start 5-1, the expectation turns into 12, 13 wins. And I don't know if they're there yet. But you know what? I also didn't think that they would start 4-1 either. I thought that they'd be 3-2 by now. So in my mind, this is an Eagles group that is very good right now, very talented, but advantage home team on a short week. I think it might be different if they play again in the playoffs. Who knows? But right now, it's almost a coin flip, but I would ultimately agree with Vegas and say Panthers probably by 3.
The final topic we'll talk about, this is Evan's wheelhouse. He loves talking about this stuff. I don't know anything about what they're going to do this week with it. So, Evan, they do something different with the uniforms on Thursday Night Football. You give us all the details, man.
Color rush. I hate it. But
what is it?
To talk about it. So basically, just to market jerseys and different, hats and shirts. What color rush is the teams will pick, for the Eagles, they wear all black. And from their socks, to their pants, to their jerseys, the helmet's green, but you can't change the helmet, and it's all black. I think the Panthers will most likely be wearing blue. I'm not sure. I'll look into it in a little bit. But the Panthers will either be all white or all blue, most likely. And it's a game where both teams can wear colored jerseys at the same time. It's really just a marketing ploy. It's only ever on Thursday Night Football, and for the most part, it is every week on Thursday Night Football. You will see a color rush or a team just wearing one of the same color the whole time. Actually, the Eagles were pioneering in doing so, where they came out in the all blacks before the color rush, and it just kind of became something that every team does. So the Eagles.
You want to go back a little bit? Remember way back in the day, Donovan was still quarterbacking this team when the Eagles came out in the all midnight green and the midnight green pants. Oh, that was awful.
I love it. So they only ever wore that. They've worn that twice.
That was so bad.
Once in 1996, and Donovan didn't even play the second time. It was Veteran Stadium's last regular season games where A.J. Feely was the starting quarterback against the Washington Redskins. It was Week 17. 2003, the end of the 2002 season. I'm full of random Eagles facts.
Those were awful. Those
No,
were awful.
I like I wish they went to the all midnight green look. I think that looks a lot better than all black. I mean, when Mel Reese comes on the radio and says those hideous black jerseys, you take notice. I tend to agree. I don't like the jerseys very much, but they will be wearing the all black look. I don't think the Eagles look good in all black. I think it's the second.
Eagles' best uniforms are the preseason uniforms. The preseason uniforms are so nice.
What, all white?
I think that they look sharp because you got the gray and black and silver trim. I think that looks really cool with the helmet.
John, they've been doing that since like 1996. That's not the new.
But they usually wear the midnight green pants. I'm saying when they do it with the gray trim and
Mel Reese refers to the midnight pants as the slow green pants. People look slow in them. He's been saying that for years. I just think the all white look, John, just to me, I associate it with preseason ball. They actually didn't wear all white in the regular season at all until like 2010, I think, was when Michael Vick was the starting quarterback under Andy Reid, and they went down to Jacksonville. I think early on in the year, like week 2, week 3, that was the first time in the regular season the Eagles had ever worn all white. Now, Chip Kelly took it from time to time, and early in the year they did do it there too, and Doug Peterson has kind of stuck with it. So at one point it was the preseason look. Now early on in the year they will do it from time to time, but when they do break out the midnight green pants, I love it because for me, that's what the Eagles look like these days. I know Kelly Green is something that a lot of people like, John, but I honestly don't remember the Eagles ever wearing Kelly Green except for that one game in 2010 because the Eagles switched in 1996 to the midnight green look, and I was like 5 years old at the time, so 5, 6 years old. So I just don't remember it. I have no allegiance to it. Same thing with the gray pants that people want to bring back. My little brother does for sure. But I love the midnight green pants, and I don't mind the midnight green shirt with the midnight green pants. That would actually be a fun color rush, John. Midnight green helmet, midnight green jersey, midnight green pants, midnight green socks. You're telling me you wouldn't like that, John?
Well, I'm just happy we'll never have to see those blue and yellow uniforms again. Those were the worst.
Oh, yeah, that was the Frankfurt yellow jackets. That was a one-time thing.
But this isn't one of Evan's 7 topics. This is something I wanted to talk about to end the show because it's kind of a different beat than we're used to. We've been very happy and positive this whole episode. And something that's been bothering me this season, and it's kind of disappointing because I was really looking forward to this rookie draft class. I mean, if you listen to this podcast from the beginning of this year, Evan and I, every week, we broke down like so many prospects. We broke down hundreds of prospects of who the Eagles could draft. And after the draft, we were happy with who the Eagles selected. And so far, I mean, the players are contributing on special teams. We've had a couple undrafted free agents contribute, but this rookie class isn't contributing yet. I mean, I was very excited for Evan's favorite pick of the draft, Derek Barnett, someone Evan was really looking forward to, something I was really looking forward to playing. I mean, he played great in preseason, but Derek Barnett, he's been committing penalties. He's been doing stupid personal foul penalties, and I know it's growing pains, but I want to see some of these rookies eventually contribute. I mean, it's kind of bad when some weeks only 2 rookies the Eagles drafted are dressing. And like Mac Hollins, he's had a couple catches. Like Evan said, he is contributing on special teams, and there's so many weapons on this offense that Mac Hollins may not see as many touches as other players, and he's just not going to get the opportunities because the other players are playing well. I hope we see more of this rookie class.
John, don't think too much into it, man. Usually rookies only really contribute when the veterans don't. Derek Barnett, I think I see a lot of his ability and his bend and his athleticism. He makes some plays here and there when he does get a chance. I just think he's kind of stuck behind Vinny Curry right now. Second-round pick Sidney Jones, obviously, has not played. Third-round pick Rasul Douglas, in my mind, has been the best rookie at this point, up to this point, has played solid. Fourth-round pick, Darnell Pumphrey, obviously, he's done for the year, has not played at all. Fifth-round pick Mac Hollins has, I think, is exactly as billed. Nice special teams player, has shown some ability here or there, certainly is not who we thought he was after that first preseason game, but has played pretty well. Sixth-round pick, I think, who is that, Shelton Gibson, or he might have been another fifth-round pick. Has not done anything, has not dressed, and Elijah Qualls, the seventh-round pick, has has kind of just been a 7th-round rotational defensive lineman. So don't overthink it, John, because the veterans on this team have played very well. What you're doing right now, John, is you want all the veterans to play stellar and all the rookies to play stellar. And that would just kind of mean they'd be undefeated and the best team in football running away. And that's just hardly ever the case. So I think you need Derek Barnett to get more opportunities. I think we need to wait for Sidney Jones to get back. I think Darnell Pumphrey's injury has really set him back, even if I'm not even sure if it's a real injury. Every once in a while you get those phantom IRs really to make that player kind of just sit back and develop and learn, and almost like a redshirt season like he would be in college. And I almost feel like that's what's going on right now for Darnell Pumphrey. But Mac Hollins, like I said, has played well. Shelton Gibson's been a massive disappointment. I think he's more or less he's on the team because he is a draft pick. I don't think he kind of made it on any merits from the preseason. So, yeah, obviously they're not playing great.
What's just frustrating is so many of these players we covered, because we did our homework this year.
So you want the Eagles to play people?
No. I'm just saying we're just seeing a lot of rookies in the NFL contribute right away. Marshawn Lattimore is contributing right away.
Because the Saints' secondary's poor.
I know. I'm just saying.
The veterans are playing well, so don't worry about the rookies.
So, okay. So basically the logic I and other Eagle fans should go with is don't worry about the rookies until the veterans don't
play so well. The veterans are playing awesome. So why worry about rookies right now? They're stuck behind veterans who are producing.
I just think it was like one of those things like before the season we were hoping for like 10 sacks from Derek Barnett, and I don't think he has 1 sack yet.
But the Eagles' past defensive line has been stellar. So
yeah, it's been incredible, yeah.
I want to win, John. I don't really care about stats. Stats are for losers.
But obviously, like you said, if the vets are playing well, the rookies aren't going to get playing time, and there are some rookies getting playing time and opportunities. I just want to – and like you said, they're rookies. They're not going to play perfect ball.
Who does, John? What veteran plays perfect?
True.
Football, like all sports, is a game of human error, John. I mean, if everyone executed all the time, always, sports would be pretty boring. I mean, it's a game of human error, and who makes the least amount of errors often wins the game. But everybody makes errors. So this idea of, Carson will throw a bad ball every once in a while. I mean, yeah. I mean, Tom Brady got intercepted last Thursday night. You know, we're not talking about Tom Brady makes a bonehead play every once in a while. It happens. You know, because we're all human beings. I'm sure you and I have made tons of errors on this podcast. You know, we do every week. So that I'm not too worried about. You know,
what I'm saying about Carson Wentz, it's just we haven't seen the finished product yet. That's what I've been saying with Wentz. I love what I've seen. I love Carson Wentz. We haven't seen the finished product, which is exciting because he can only get better.
He could get worse.
But let's hope he gets better.
Believe me, he can get worse. He has played very well, and I mean, at any point in time, it could just fall. I don't think it will, but don't say he can only get better because it could so obvious. I mean, to say it can only get better is like Nelson Aguilar last year. Yeah, all right, it can only get better. You know, like for somebody playing fairly well, it can absolutely get worse. So we'll see what happens. But I'm very happy with the production of Carson Wentz right now. So, John, switching topics a little bit, I just want to hear, have you watched the 76ers preseason at all?
Ben Simmons, happy with. Markelle Fultz, little concerns, but what is this shoulder injury? I don't know if I can handle another Sixers rookie injury. I don't know. Like, what is with this shoulder? I mean, Markelle Fultz all of a sudden changed his shot. But Ben Simmons is the very positive news. I mean, he looks incredible out there. I mean, this is a 6'10" point guard that's so fast and can get up and down the floor so quickly.
Magic Johnson.
He doesn't have the shot yet, but it's
a while. Could you imagine?
But the big Sixers, Embiid getting the big deal. That's the big Sixers news.
Rookie scale max contract, but there is some flexibility if Joel Embiid gets injured. So it is very interesting to see what happens moving forward with the Philadelphia 76ers. But I don't think you can really look at the final scores of the preseason until you get Joel Embiid back. And I know he's playing 5-on-5 ball, and he has said that he does anticipate playing at some point this preseason. And when he's on the court, at least based off last year, the Sixers are night and day defensively, offensively, everywhere. And add Ben Simmons and Dario Saric and potentially Markelle Fultz into that mix, and you get, in my opinion, the 5th seed in the East.
Well, Embiid is probable versus the Nets in the preseason, so we'll see if he plays there. Fultz, you worried about Fultz yet?
I'll be worried about Fultz when he contributes something. Then I'll be worried about him not being around. So for now, I'm looking at Joel Embiid.
He hasn't played well in the preseason yet.
I know he hasn't, so I'm not really worried about whether he's healthy or injured because he hasn't been producing a whole lot. Am I worried about him long term? Not yet. No, I'm not worried about the shoulder or his production right now. What I'm looking at is I want to see Joel Embiid out on the court, and I want to see how him and Ben Simmons really gel, and Dario Saric, and obviously JJ Redick and those types of players. How does this team gel? Because on paper they have a lot more talent than almost everyone in the East.
But one other Philly news: the Flyers have had a couple good wins. A little hockey shout out there. Wayne Simmons scoring goals. Claude Giroux going from center to wing. There's your hockey talk for you fans. And then Chase Utley back in the playoffs. Best second baseman in Phillies history. We love you, Chase. We'll never forget.
I don't like Chase Utley that much.
Best second baseman of your lifetime, Evan. He's part of that crew that brought you the only championship you have seen.
Yeah, I think he gets a lot of love in the city, and people don't talk about Ryan Howard or Jimmy Rollins or
I love them all.
Yeah, but you like everyone else. It's like, oh, the dude, Chase Utley.
It's the man.
He's just some guy.
The man.
Oh no, or is it Dario Saric, the dude?
The thing is, I think so, but Chase Utley was the number 3 hitter on a team that made the playoffs 5 straight years. And remember, the number 3 hitter is your most important hitter in baseball.
Okay, John.
But that's all we have for this week. Evan and I are going to be talking after Eagles-Panthers, after Thursday Night Football, which we both don't like. But hey, Eagles primetime football. And then the week after, more Eagles primetime football because the Eagles have Monday Night Football at home against the Washington Redskins. So back-to-back primetime games for the Philadelphia Eagles.
I hope everyone noticed that I shaved my mustache and John's been growing his out. So we're going to go back and forth here, and we want to hear who has the better mustache.
Well, I'll tell the viewers I don't like the Mr. Clean look. Like after I made the big life change and I shaved my head bald and stopped the buzz cut in February. And I've been trying different looks, and I don't like the Mr. Clean look at all. I got the rock facial hair now.
Well, John, I don't know, John. I think you're a very handsome young man.
I appreciate the compliment, but I don't like the Mr. Clean look for myself.
Well, I think a lot of ladies would, but that's up to you, John.
All right, I'll catch you after the game on Thursday, Evan.
All right, buddy. I'll be here.